Colten's mom, Debbie Baptiste, and his uncle, Alvin Baptiste. Also with us are Sheldon Whitney, Eleanor Sunchild, Anthony Linklater, and the family's lawyer, Chris Murphy. Also, Eleanor Sunchild is the family's lawyer. So I want to thank you very much for coming, and I'll now turn it over to Jade. Thank you, Jade.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and I'm sorry, I'm also joined by, of course, Senator Lillian Dick. My apologies. That's rude of me.
I'd just like to begin by just giving thanks to the Creator for blessing us with another day to be with my family and to be able to walk in the sun and just to be present. So I just like to give thanks for having another day here. My family and I have been through a lot in this past year and a half. This entire time we feel like a lot of our experiences and words have been falling on deaf ears. We haven't been heard in the process or included in the process, which is why we came to Ottawa. This is why we came to share our story and our experiences. And it's been a very welcoming environment. We feel that our voices have been made a priority here, and we feel like we are finally being heard. We've been able to share the story of my brother Colten, of the individual, the loving individual that he was, and who he meant to us as a family. But also to share our hardships and all the systemic discrimination and racism that we endured in the process of his loss. We've been able to meet with various leadership. We'd especially like to thank Senator Kim Pate and Minister Bennett for their hospitality, their generosity, and their welcoming arms in taking care of us the moment we made the decision to come here. We've also met with Minister Philpott, Minister Wilson Raybould, Minister Goodale, MP Dan Vandal, Senator Lillian Dick, Prime Minister Trudeau, MP Adam Vaughan, and Minister Bardish Chagger. We've also had the opportunity to speak with NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, MP Charlie Angus, MP Georgina Jolibos, and today we will be meeting with MP Rosemary Falk and Senator Sinclair. It's those welcoming arms, it's those open doors that's not only impacted us as a family, but shown that leadership is serious about the issues and the experiences that we have felt. And we know that what we've experienced not only impacts us, but all of those across the country. We see the unity that it is bringing within our society, the rallies of support, the prayers with our Indigenous people and our allies coming together and seeing that there was wrong here, wrong was done here, and that it is unacceptable. We see you and we hear you and we stand here with you. And we understand that this is just the beginning. Us coming here and meeting with this leadership, it does not end here. This is an ongoing process and has been. And we continue. We will be back. We will be speaking out. This does not end here. We will continue the dialogue and we will press for concrete changes within the system so that no other families, no other Indigenous lives are taken before changes are made. Colten is not able to stand with us physically, so we stand here for him. We speak for him, and we will continue to do that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Questions?
Hi, Integrity CBC. The Prime Minister will be giving a speech this afternoon in the House of Commons specifying changes that are required to First Nation rights. What are your expectations regarding that speech?
To bring awareness to the nation.
Could you come to the mic, sir, please?
That question is that we're here to bring awareness, and that racism shouldn't be tolerated at all throughout Canada, no matter what skin color you are, what religion you're from. This should not be tolerated at all. We're living in a 2018, and there's a lot of hatred out there. And this, to bring the awareness that we bring, is that we want peace, unity, live together. We're all humans in this world. We all cry, we all bleed and breathe the same air and drink the same water. Though I do not want what I'm experiencing right now. I do not want hatred for my grandchildren and my children's children. Is why I'm here to bring this awareness to the Canadian government and how we are treated. Things have to change, and we want the laws to be changed. Is why we're here.
But with regards to the announcement, it definitely is once again those initial processes and those recognizations. But concrete changes have to follow along with those words and with a framework. And working with when it's regards to Indigenous people should be included in the process. Because if it's impacting Indigenous people, they should be included, absolutely. But once again, those concrete changes, like those need to start to get implemented, not just words, not just talk, but things, actions such as Minister of Justice, making the announcement that we will be looking at the way jury selection is made. Those are the actions that are needed following the words. And so this announcement is good that it's coming, but there needs to be action following it.
Just to follow up, you've mentioned the many meetings you've had since yesterday with different MPs, ministers. Do you feel like your concerns are heard by all the parties here in Ottawa? Do you feel like you have a support of all of the political class here in the capital, in Ottawa?
We met with many, and once again, I talked about the unity. This is an issue that affects all of Canada. As leadership, we know sometimes not everybody sees eye to eye, but we need to work on this together. It is just not upon one person to make a change or a difference or to vocalize. We are stronger in many. In order for this to keep going, the dialogue has to keep going, and we will be back. We've been welcomed back, and we will be back.
Is there something you can do when you go home within your community? Do you have plans to keep pushing this through grassroots in your communities?
Yes.
We definitely do. There's a lot of racism in Saskatchewan, and we hope that our coming here opens dialogue to have meaningful discussions about that racism. Yeah. A lot of Indigenous people are fearful that this verdict supports vigilante justice, which it does not. So we need to ensure that this conversation continues so our people are protected as well.
Yeah. And this conversation needs to continue not just in the political sense, the government sense, official sense. It has to continue in the classroom. It has to continue at the dinner table. It has to continue at the workplace. It has to continue at the coffee shop. It's something that you have to walk the talk. It's something that has to go on with every individual within society, with the people. That's where the change has to come from, is with the people. So.
Return to Ottawa at any point, or to continue trying to maintain pressure on the federal government to make sure that these words do turn into action?
Yes, and we're going to continue. And also, as my feelings today about the whole situation. As for all nation people, that we refuse to live in fear. Our children should not live in fear. Our children should be able to walk this earth in freedom and not be worried about being shot or come up missing. So changes need to happen with the justice system, with the racism. And people seem to forget that we all drink the same water, we breathe the same air, and without this, we wouldn't be on earth. So we need to get along, we need to make this peace. People need to think before they say racist things to each other. Be kind to one another. And that's my saying on that. Okay.
Good morning. Once again, to echo Jade's comments about the reception here in Ottawa from the federal government, as well as the other parties, we want to thank you. And I think that, looking forward to the announcement this afternoon and the potential changes to the way things are going to be done in regards to the justice system, among many others, that it's going to be incumbent upon the premiers of each of the provinces as well. We can't forget that this is happening in our home area of North Battleford and Biggar and the surrounding area where this incident occurred, and where the family strongly feels the injustice has been done. And I don't think it's proper to have to come all the way to Ottawa to be able to voice concerns when these issues are happening in small town Saskatchewan. And we've had opportunity to meet with the Premier, Justice Minister, and also looking at concrete changes within our province. So with that, and the changes that are coming, the announcements that are going to be made today, once again, it's going to be incumbent upon the respective premiers, their cabinet, and the leadership of the provinces to ensure that those changes are going to be carried out across the country. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Were you able to meet with the representatives of three main federal parties, the Liberals, the Conservatives, and the NDP?
We are meeting with MP Falk after the press conference this morning. She is the MP for the riding in which Colten died. So we're hoping to have some meaningful dialogue with her about how to make that region better for the people who live there. One other point on what the provinces can do. In my opinion, the number one way to change the justice system in Saskatchewan is for Legal Aid Saskatchewan to be properly funded. Right now, what's happening in that province is there is a meat grinder that catches many Indigenous people, and before you know it, you're on bail conditions that shouldn't have been imposed in the first place. You're pleading guilty to offenses that you could have challenged in court had you had proper legal representation. And it's a cycle that keeps on going. And until Legal Aid Saskatchewan properly represents members of the Indigenous community, the cycle of injustice will continue, and we will never get to the point where the proportion of Indigenous people in jail is lessened, the proportion of people of Indigenous origin who are being systematically betrayed by the justice system in Saskatchewan will not change. They need to stand up for their clients and assert their right that they're innocent until proven guilty and start setting trials, because that's the way this is going to change in Saskatchewan. If you stand up and you start setting trial dates for your trials instead of pleading guilty each and every time you're charged with a criminal offense.
Just a minute ago, one of the things the federal government is doing with many Indigenous communities, First Nations, talking about the new fiscal relationship. Right now, most First Nations get a bundle of money from health, public safety, from Indian Northern Affairs, etc. kind of consolidate all that. But picking up on that, if you look at financial statements from most First Nations, they'll publish what they spend on health, whatever. But maybe there's an opportunity for a First Nations government to step in on that legal aid side, so that there's more legal assistance provided by a First Nations government to its people, with perhaps assistance from the federal government with a specific program. Can you maybe talk about how First Nations governments can fill in that role?
Yes. Well, firstly, I've had discussions with people in Saskatchewan, lawyers in Saskatchewan, about starting a legal office that represents Indigenous people, and the only condition of coming into that office, you get free legal services, but the only condition is you're not pleading guilty. You're going to assert your legal rights. And because there's the trust in the legal aid system by many people in the Indigenous community is just not there. So that's something that I don't believe I've ever thought of before, but I would strongly support and volunteer my time to working for a legal office that is based on a First Nation, that is funded by a First Nation, that genuinely takes the concerns and the constitutional rights that Indigenous accused people have and fight for them. Because right now, my conversations and my observations is that Legal Aid Saskatchewan is not properly fighting for the clients that they have, and it's mainly a resource issue. They just do not have the sufficient number of lawyers to fight for them.
Are there other questions? I just want to try and bring the focus back to the reason we're here in terms of, and when we talk about justice in this country, we need to decolonize our notions of justice. That in fact, part of what contributed to Colten Boushie dying, Colten Boushie not having a fair, not being fairly represented in the process as a victim, the fact that what contributed to how his mum was treated when the police went is all part of what we need to do in terms of decolonizing justice. With respect, just propping up legal aid will not do that. We need to fundamentally engage in nation-to-nation discussions. As we've heard from the family repeatedly here, it is about a different kind of relationship and a different way of relating to each other. And so I just don't know, Jade, if you wanted to finish up, or if there are any other.
Eleanor?
And just further to that, I think that, just to echo some of the sentiments of Senator Pate, that, on the question from the gentleman, it's very important that, we do bring things back and really look at aspects of inherent and treaty rights. And I think we'll be yet to see with the announcement this afternoon whether, it's been conceptualized within the Constitution, within Section 35, those types of aspects, or are we going to be looking at more aspects around inherent and treaty rights and jurisdiction for First Nations? So I think that was a very good question, sir. And I think it's a very important question to be asking, because, we are growing as First Nations. Our demographics are growing across the country. We are not finding justice within the legal system. What options are there for us? Those are the questions that need to be asked. What type of systems and structures jurisdictionally do we need to develop as First Nations and Indigenous people across this country? That's the real question that should be asked. And I guess in anticipating the announcement this afternoon, that's going to be a fundamental expectation on behalf of the family.
I also had a question about, in terms of accountability going forward, you guys are saying this is kind of just getting started, and I'm wondering, a year from now, can you paint a picture for us as to what you would like to see, so that then we, that can then be held to account? Where would you like to see us to be at with all of this a year from now?
We'd like justice to be inclusive. We'd like to see changes within the justice system that include Indigenous people, whether that be as, proper representation for an accused, or proper support and respect given to a family who's of a victim, as in this case. Mm-hmm. So if that means changes to how juries are selected, that would be great. But we'd like to see overall changes to the systemic discrimination that Indigenous people face within the justice system from the time of the incident right through to a verdict. So however that translates, I'm not sure, but we just want change. And we don't want to hear all of the stories that we've been hearing constantly. People are always contacting us and telling us stories of injustice, how they've been treated with respect to missing and murdered Indigenous women. The RCMP have a lot to do with that, and a lack of communication and lack of support, just as we've seen here. So the issues are broad, and we don't want to see or hear any more stories of injustice because there are too many. And that's why they're here seeking justice for Colten, because it's bigger than this family. It touches all of Indigenous people across Canada.
Yep.
Thank you.
Question. Has anyone from Andrew Scheer's office reached out to you? No, but anyone from...
I brought this eagle fan with me from my homelands to Ottawa. This eagle represents many things: truth, justice, strength, and freedom. The eagle we honor. And this is why I brought this fan, eagle fan, to Ottawa. And this is a symbolic symbol of First Nations people.
Have you had any contact with the office of Mr. Scheer?
No, we have not.
Any reason why?
No, not really. We have reached out to MP Falk, and we haven't had communication with Leader Scheer, and this was a bipartisan trip. We wanted to meet with as many people as we could, and there's no reason why we haven't. We haven't been contacted, and we haven't contacted his office. But it's been a whirlwind since Friday evening, and we put this together as quickly as we can, and we've tried to contact as many people as we can. We just don't have enough time to meet with everybody, but we're here. I think that's his. No, they haven't reached out to us, and we haven't reached out to them personally. But that's not because it's not a.
I think they have reached out to us.
Pardon? Sorry, I'm not sure. I haven't had any communications personally with the office, so we're happy to meet with anybody who contacts us. There's been no meeting, correct.
And you guys, are you going home? Are you guys going home today?
We're going home tonight, yes.
Tonight, yeah. Can I just ask you one more question? On the peremptory selection in
Yes.
juries, I heard from, there was a defense lawyer who was on Monday when folks first arrived, and they'd said that that measure is in place to benefit defendants, the accused, and saying that, an inordinate number of First Nations people are in the justice system as the accused, and so that this in many cases benefits them, and so getting rid of this could in effect harm First Nations and visible minority defendants. Does that concern you?
No, there are a number of reasons for that, but it does not concern me, because one of the issues is the jury pool that's originally selected has very few Indigenous people in it, and there are a lot of reasons for that. It's mainly based on provincial jury acts, but the number of Indigenous people who get called and who actually arrive for jury selection is a much smaller percentage than the representation in the community. So I don't believe that that's a concern. The reason why you have peremptory challenges is to potentially weed out partial jurors, biased jurors. There are much better ways to do that than look at a color of a person's skin when they get called up. It's a process that literally lasts 3 seconds. Accused, look upon the juror. Juror, look upon the accused. Defense, challenge. That's it. So that's in my view, that's government-sanctioned discrimination. There are better ways to do it, like the UK and the US do it, to weed out the partial jurors. You good? Thank you, everybody.
So like I said before, we're here now. This is only the beginning of us speaking out. We encourage people all across the nation to continue to mobilize and organize, to speak your truth and speak from your hearts. This change needs to come now. Another life does not need to be lost before change is made. We will be back. We will continue fighting for justice for Colten because it means so much to so many. And with that, I'd just like to thank you all for being here with us, and many blessings to you and your loved ones.
Hi, hi.
Especially maybe a high-profile one like this, they might have said, we'd like to have some, I don't know if that's, I'm not sure if the ability for that in the system or.